Today I want to talk about one of the most difficult struggles of my entire life. Something that destroyed relationships, destroyed opportunities, destroyed my body, destroyed my career, and almost completely destroyed me. And that was my relationship with alcohol. And I pretty much drank every single day for 30 years of my life. This is real talk here. And 2 years ago, right here at this place, which is Center Parcs, which is a place outside of London. No, this is not a product placement. On New Year's Eve 2 years ago, I said to myself, I'm gonna try to stop drinking for 30 days and see how that goes. And 30 went to 60, went to 90, and now I'm 2 years later, and I've been completely sober for 2 years. And I want to talk about that journey, and I want to explain to you what it is for me and also what it's not. I do not go to AA meetings. I've never been to the 12 steps. I also am a former heroin addict who had 2 overdoses in New York City in 2001. I used to smoke Lucky Strike unfilters, like a pack a day back in my day. I've tried most drugs as well. This is my story and my journey, and this is by no means something prescriptive for you. And I know there's lots of people, friends of mine that have been on the show, like Rich Roll and John Joseph, who have their own stories of sobriety and their own methods of getting there. And I totally respect them as well. It's just, those aren't my stories. And I want to talk about this today. And this is something I wanted to do a year ago, and maybe I want even to do a year and a half ago and talk to you about, but never seemed the right time. I don't know if this is the right time, but I think I really need to talk about this because I really wish that the 20-year-old Brian could have listened to what I'm about to say, because I think it would have given me a lot of perspective. Because for most of my life, I had a romantic, dysfunctional, abusive relationship with alcohol. And for me, I think my first drink was somewhere around 13, 14 years old. I remember I had just gone to Japan with my mom, and I brought back a bottle of sake, and I got in an argument with her and slammed the door, and I went into my room and I took a shot of sake. I don't know why. I think I probably saw tough guys do that in the movies, right? That's what tough guys do. They drink hard, right? And I'm sure that was part of what was in my brain, but I did it. And Brian soon discovered that alcohol was the way that I could escape. I could escape the frustrations I had with this world. And I think the more I get to know myself, it was a way of escaping me. I'm a mean bastard. I'm really hard on everyone around me, including myself. It's just never good enough. It could always be better, Brian. You could always do better. Something deep down inside of me always knows I could do better and I could have done more. And that can be really beneficial. It creates a high achiever. I've done some amazing things with my life that I'm super proud of. But it also means that the internal dialogue in my head, sometimes maybe it's too much for me even to deal with myself. So for me, having those 12 beers at the end of the day, or those 14 shots of tequila, was a way of me getting away from me, for taking just a few hour break from type A Brian Rose, who was so demanding. It was almost like getting away from an abusive father or mother, but it was me. So, no excuses there. But I became fascinated with drinking. And I remember my mom took us to Europe when I was 15, 16, and I could drink at a bar. They actually served me a beer, where in America, there's no way. You have to be like 21. So that was like an eye-opener for me, and I was like, wow. And I was drinking in Europe, and then I got back to high school, and a college student that used to live with us used to buy me alcohol, and I'd get drunk when I would go out and do shots in the car before I go to a movie. But when I finally got to MIT, I got into something called a fraternity, and it was 50 dudes in a house with no supervision. And that's when it all came undone. And I started really drinking professionally. And some nights we wouldn't even go out. It'd be 25 guys hanging out in the bar, no girls, no need, and we would finish a keg and just do drinking games all night. And it was some serious male bonding, probably something I really needed as a man, and I loved those times, but it was also something that really incubated this culture of drinking every single day. And at the same time, I was also getting A's at MIT, probably one of the most challenging institutions in the world, and yet I'm drinking every night. Every night I would finish the night after I would study till 2 a.m. with some beers. And so this just became part of who I was, and I also started becoming what I would become, which was a functional alcoholic, someone that could drink a lot and still show up and convince himself that he was showing up. But every time I drank in a difficult situation, it was a way of not processing things. And that's what's, I think, really important to remember here. When you drink or use or shop or have sex or something to get yourself out of what's the pain in your brain, you don't process it. You just kick the can down the road and you're going to have to deal with it later. And if you kick it down the road enough times, you're going to have a major trauma because you're not living your life in a congruent way because you never dealt with the pain of the reality of the situation. And so this is what happened to Brian. I would have a breakup with a girlfriend and I would just dive deeper into the bottle. Of course, when I went to Wall Street, the culture was again of excess and drinking. And New York City, as Rich Roll would say, it's like an alcoholic's dream. Like every corner is a bar. And I started hanging out with friends that, drank as much as I did. And so I got really into that as well. And again, I was basically drinking every single day. For me, it just didn't make sense not to drink every day. And I would just find a way to push through the next day. And so I remember showing up as a trader, in the morning and have a coffee and a Diet Coke, and I was ready to go. And this perpetuated itself, and it continued and it continued. And, every day you succumb to this stuff, you probably dig yourself in a bigger hole of never being able to get out. And I got to a point where I just thought I would never get rid of this thing. And of course, the alcohol leads to usually bad decisions. Started hanging out with people that were using drugs. And of course, I started doing drugs. And of course, heroin was my drug of choice. And if you want to know more about that, watch my movie Iron Mind. It's on YouTube. It's free. And you can hear my whole story with that crazy drug. And again, back to something Dennis McKenna once said to me, who we've just done a movie with called Reconnect. Drugs aren't bad. Drugs are just substances. It's the people that consume them in dangerous ways that are bad. So heroin isn't bad. Heroin can be used to kill pain and can be used to get people out of really bad situations so we can heal them. But when you're shoving it up your nose every other day and you stop breathing multiple times and have to go to the emergency room, then that's a person that has the problem. So, alcohol in itself isn't bad, but I can't handle it. And I read an article recently where Brad Pitt said, I got my alcohol privileges revoked. And he's been sober, I think, for a few years because Brad knows that when he drinks, he becomes a guy he doesn't like. And so that's the way I look at it. My last 2 years and for the rest of my life now, I've got my alcohol privileges revoked. And that's Brian's journey. It doesn't necessarily mean your journey. It's funny. Sometimes I see people that can have a drink or two and then not drink for a few weeks. And I'm like, oh, that's how normal people drink. For me, it was like, let's have 50 drinks. That was like what we always did. And that's the only thing I knew. So again, this proceeds. There's warning signs all along the way. I had girlfriends that would just look at me, and when they got to know me, they'd be like, what? Do you do this every single day? Do you always have so many drinks? But, they would love me and they would support me. But it just got worse and worse and worse. And when I moved to London and finally got off the heroin, I was still drinking. That was just something that was such a big part of me that I just didn't know how to get rid of it. And it just got to a point where I just hated myself for the person I was when I was drinking. And I remember being in Shoreditch and going out to buy like a bottle of vodka and looking at the guy that was selling it at me, and he was looking in my eye thinking, you're a fucking loser. You gotta fucking buy this bottle of vodka just to make it through your life. And I saw him looking at me, whether he was or not, I don't know. And I was just like, I fucking hate this feeling of being a loser, and I can't figure it out. And so I just want to say to anybody out there who's just frustrated with a behavior you can't control, is that, man, I get it, and I'm supposed to be one of the smartest people in the world. I'm surrounded by great people, by loving parents, by incredible education, and I can't figure out my own alcoholism. It's so frustrating for me, so frustrating. And I got to a point where I never thought I would figure it out. I just thought this was going to be me, and I would probably die early at 60 of liver failure or something, and that was just going to be me. And so the thing that changed all that was me connecting with the rest of the world. And I think a lot of alcoholics feel that way. They feel very disconnected from the world. And when they go in to have their drink, they don't feel that pain anymore. And for a lot of them, it's a way of just escaping and getting away from the world and disconnecting. And so I understand that. And so funny enough, London Real forced me to get out there and connect with the world. And the more I connected, the more I listened, the more I gave back, the more I became part of this human organism, the less I felt the need to drink as much. And that the weird thing is it's, when you look at the media in the world, they tell you it's all or nothing. You have to go to AA, you have to stop and all that stuff. And look, maybe that works for a lot of people, but that wasn't the case with me. For me, it just became less of a necessity every day and less of a necessity. And I became more connected, and I started walking away from some of these abusive behaviors because I felt like I had a purpose and I had people looking up to me, and I just felt more loved, maybe more part of this world. And then got to a point where about 3 or 4 years ago, I was still drinking wine here and there. And sometimes it would be like, a few nights a week and a few nights a week more. And I was just like, why am I doing this? I'm like, this is just being lazy now. Now you're just being lazy. This is some little comfort that you use because you've had a hard day or whatever, which is all BS at the end of the day. And then finally here on New Year's 2 years ago, I said to Marianne, I said, babe, let's stop drinking for 30 days. And she said, okay, let's do it. And 30 days later, she said, let's have a drink. And I said, no, I'm actually liking this. And there's been times where I've been like, man, I could really use a drink because, this is just not the funnest day or the funnest situation. But I just kind of found a way through it and breathed through it. Funny enough, the closest I was ever having a drink was when I went on vacation to Bordeaux last year. And this is, of course, featured in the movie Reconnect, where I felt just completely out of my element. I had nothing to do. I felt kind of frustrated. I couldn't work. I couldn't take action. I couldn't fill my time. And I said to Marianne, I think about drinking. And she was like, no, don't do that. But that was the time. So, a lot of people say I'm a workaholic and I don't know my work-life balance. But if I get in those situations and I start drinking again, then that's not good. So I'm also getting to know myself and getting to know, maybe I know what's best for me and not everyone else knows what's best for me. And so the last 2 years have been just the greatest of my life. I'm so proud of myself when I wake up every day, not hungover. Just like I was proud of myself every day after I stopped doing heroin. Like for me, I was like, you're just a fucking rock star. I was so proud of myself. So proud that I kicked that nasty brown fucking powder going up my nose, man. I was so proud of myself for years. I was proud of myself. And every day I'm proud of myself because for me, this is my battle. We all have a battle. You have a battle. Your battle might be, like I said, negative self-talk. It could be retail therapy. It could be sex. It could be drinking. It could be binge eating with food. You're always shoving something in your mouth because you always want to be thinking or feeling something that you don't want to feel. Everybody has their kryptonite. For me, it's alcohol. It's something that changes my state to get me out of the moment. And if I can win that battle every day, then I feel great about myself and I can kick ass. And I really believe that in this life, it's not about us becoming great in becoming greater in certain things. It's about us fighting our demons and our flaws. And if you can get up every day and conquer your few little demons out there that are out there looking for you every day, they're gunning for you. And trust me, alcohol and drugs are still gunning for me. They still got me in my sights. And if I start to go weak and my power level starts to go down like in a video game, then they're going to pick me off. And they'll be like, come on, Brian, let's have that drink. So every day I have to be a vigilant, like a motherfucker. And that way, every day I get my sleep, I get my meditation, I do my gratitude, I do my affirmations. I go do hard, meaningful work. I exhaust myself physically. I try to be with any painful emotions. I try to forgive. I try to lead others. I try to give back. I try to do all of those things. And then guess what? The next day, it's another battle. And the next day, it's another battle. And the next day, it's another battle. And I'm not naive enough to think that I've got this thing licked, because I don't. And so maybe there is an equivalent. Maybe alcoholics go to AA meetings every day to remind themselves and surround themselves with people to know not to go back on that track. But for me, I've found a way to keep me where I'm at. And so I think the main message I want to tell Brian at 20, at 30, at 40 is that, look, brother, this isn't going to be this way forever. It's not necessarily. I know you were giving up on yourself. You hated yourself. You loathed yourself. You didn't believe in yourself. Your self-esteem was so low because you couldn't control this nasty, clear liquid you'd have to shove down your throat every night just to feel whole. And I just want to say, buddy, like, it will get better. But you're going to have to do things that aren't comfortable. You're going to have to go out there and connect with this world and with the people of this world that could potentially hurt you and that you think could hurt you. And by doing that, you're going to feel finally connected. And when you feel connected, you're not going to feel like You have to escape or abuse yourself or get out of this situation. And so that's my advice to the younger Brian, and that's my advice to any people out there. I know a lot of you are struggling with addictive behaviors, whether it's, like I said, drugs or food or sex or retail or your damn phone. I know people with 15 news apps, and they're literally addicted to their phone and they can't set it down. That's not necessarily any worse than some of these other addictions. I mean, sure, you're not going to rot your liver out, but you might be completely not present and not dealing with tricky emotions for a long time. So I just want to say that look, every day is a brand new day. Try looking at some of your behaviors. Try looking at your fears and ask yourself why you're afraid of them and go into them, because that's ultimately what it was for me. I was afraid of people hurting me. And of course, so I moved in with Mariana and Gabby. I was afraid of being connected with humans that could potentially hurt me. So I had these two little boys that are they're so vulnerable. Anything could happen to them, and I would be crushed and devastated. And honestly, that's what kept me from having kids before and from even being around humans, because I thought they would hurt me because if something happened to them. But now I embrace that as a possibility every day. And I recognize that the joy I get and the connectivity I get by being willing to be hurt is worth it. And maybe that's what all of us need to realize, that it's okay to be hurt, to let our feelings down, to let our guard down, to be vulnerable, to go out there and be part of this world. Life is pain, life is joy, life is all of these things. If we breathe, we'll find a way through it. There's a lesson in all of this. There's a lesson in everything out there. And so that's why I don't necessarily regret my 30 years of hard drinking. I mean, I guess I do, but it brought me to this place where I am so clear right now. I'm so focused right now that every minute of every day is so important for me. So I could never spend that minute not fully present, not sober, and I could never jeopardize a minute the next day where I wouldn't be completely present, because I feel like I'm on this mission. I've got to do these incredible things for this world, and I'm so grateful that alcohol showed me that. So there's my story. I don't know if that was the best version of what it was, but this is a little bit of what it was like to be me those last 30 years. And again, there is hope for everyone out there. Yeah, thank you for keeping me honest, all of you. Being watched by everyone is just a wonderful thing. That accountability is just priceless. And I always say, find some people that will hold you accountable, because all of you out there have held me accountable. And I know no one's watching me per se to see if I'm having a drink, but I want to be able to tell you this year I'm 2 years, and next year I'm 3 years, and next year I'm 4 years. And the thing is after about a year, I don't even think about it anymore. I wasn't counting the days until it's 2 years now, because now I am a non-drinker. That's it. And then I will go on to do other things in the future, and I will become that person. And I think that's the definition of when a habit just becomes who you are. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on alcohol, on drinking, and on any kind of a state change that you are not in control of. Are there times where I would still love to have a drink? Yeah, there's sometimes social situations where I'm like, yeah, I should be the one. But the truth is you can have a hell of a lot of fun in this life without changing your state, because life is fun. So now I find I'm actually goofier and sillier in public than I was even when I was drinking. And so amen to that. Anyways, wherever you are out there, Happy New Year. I hope you can make some incredible moves for 2020 to just become the person that you want to be. There's a great line from the movie Wall Street where Bud Fox says to his dad, he said, "One day you're going to be proud of me, Dad." And he says, "It's yourself you got to be proud of, buddy." And that's the truth. It's you got to be proud of. Today, I'm proud of Brian Rose. And I hope you can take steps so you can be proud of you. All right. Much love. Bye.